Today's episode is presented by A24's harrowing new horror film, Bring Her Back, in theaters everywhere, May 30th. Nearly 2 years after bludgeoning the box office with the overnight all-timer Talk to Me, brothers Danny and Michael Philippou return to conjure even more terror from the aisles with Bring Her Back. A brother and sister uncover a terrifying ritual at the secluded home of their new foster mother, played by Oscar-nominated actress Sally Hawkins. Bloody Disgusting's Megan Navarro calls it the feel-bad horror movie of the year, with scares as visceral and brutal as you'd expect. Discover how death can be undone in Bring Her Back, exclusively in theaters everywhere, May 30th.
This week's episode is sponsored by a true story, the chilling new horror film, The Ritual, in theaters June 6th. Starring Al Pacino, Dan Stevens, Abigail Cowan, Ashley Greene, and Patricia Heaton. The Ritual is based on the terrifying possession of Emma Schmidt and what became the most documented exorcism in American history. Two priests divided by doubt must come together to face a darkness that challenges the very limits of their faith. Don't miss the movie critics are calling a spiritual successor to The Exorcist. Coming to theaters everywhere June 6th. Get your tickets at theritualmovie.com.
So, you just started using LinkedIn Premium. Now what? Well, on your premium company page, you noticed around 7.5 times more page engagement and 5 times more page views. Well done. And now, new clients are messaging you. All because you're using LinkedIn Premium, which helps you get the business growth you want. Think big, small business. Think big. Start your free trial at linkedin.com/premium small business. That's linkedin.com/premium small business.
You have to control yourself!
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking a salad that was once named Elizabeth. We're talking I'm just placing a lethal dose of crack in their presence. And we're talking want a date? Want a party? Got any money? And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're talking, where'd you get this This is one of my bitch's arms! Who the fuck are you?
Oh, this movie is so offensive, and yet I loved it.
I think it has a big ol' heart to it.
It does.
Yes. Everyone, yes, we are discussing Frank Henenlotter's Frankenhooker, our second Frank Henenlotter film of the year after covering Brain Damage back in January.
And folks, don't get too excited because we're not going to do Basket Case before the end of the year. This was an anomaly. We're doing this one because it is its 35th anniversary this week. Well, we're getting a jump on it. But I'm not going to lie, Trace. I am kind of chomping at the bit to watch Basket Case now because I have so enjoyed these other two.
I was gifted the Basket Case trilogy like 2 years ago by a friend, and I have yet to watch any of them. And I'm just like, oh my God, I need to watch these because
we have homework.
I know, because that's the thing. Henenlotter has done the Basket Case trilogy. He has done Brain Damage. He has done Frankenhooker, and then he came out of hiatus in like 2008 to do another film. But like he hasn't done anything but these, and so I feel like we're missing the big chunk of what was his breakout in Basket Case.
Oh my God. Also, this is just kind of giving me flashbacks to our discussions of Ernest R. Dickerson, where I was just like, I'm loving every movie. And then you discover, oh, there is a finite amount of texts. And once you exhaust them, there will be very few, if any, ever to talk about again. And that just makes me sad. Like, I need more of these kinds of weirdo filmmakers in the world. I mean, honestly, give me the juice.
It's wild. And Frankenhooker, I gotta say, I didn't like it as much as Brain Damage, but I did find it funnier than Brain Damage.
Yes, I have heard this repeatedly referred to as his funniest movie, but I am in agreement with you. I think that there was just a little bit more going on in Brain Damage, but honestly, this was a delight.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure it plays gangbusters with the crowd. Like any of those exploitation theaters that were showing this in the 90s, I'm sure it was like a hoot and a half. Or I guess any video store rental that did carry this.
Right. I am going to need you to program this for your Weird Wednesday so we know what it plays like with a crowd.
I'm so happy you said that because I'm screening it next week.
There we go. Okay. So, folks, by the time you hear this, he will have already done it.
Yeah. Which, again, it's one of those ones, I didn't grow up with this movie. I believe we said last week, this is a first-time watch for both you and I, right?
Yes,
yeah.
It is.
And so, but again, it's one of those things, like, that movie is almost sold out. And I'm like, wow, I guess, like, this movie does have, like, a ton of fans.
Or it's Henenlotter. Maybe people just know, he does these kinds of weird little gems.
Or it's just the fact that it's called Frankenhooker.
Frankenhooker.
Well, because Franken sex worker doesn't really have the same ring to it.
And that's how you know that we're in the 90s, baby.
I felt so guilty, though. I was writing hooker in my notes for everything. Every time we were referring to a sex worker, I was like, hooker.
Wow. Canceled.
I know, cancel me. But yeah, no, Frankenhooker. I quite liked this, and we're just gonna dive right into it, okay, Joe?
Do it.
So, interestingly enough, there's not a ton about, like, just Frankenhooker out there on the internet. A lot of times when you look for Frankenhooker, it's like, it's an interview with Henenlotter, but like retrospectives talking about his filmography, because he hadn't made a film since, 2008, I guess. But like, really, this was his last, like, known/successful film.
Right. Okay.
So I'm again piecemealing a lot of these types of things. Most of what's online and what I'm using is coming from the commentary on the Blu-ray for this film. Gotta say, Henenlotter, a great commentator. He was a delight to listen to.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, he's paired with his special effects and makeup guy, Gabe Bartalos, who did the work in Frankenhooker and Brain Damage too, and they just have a great rapport.
Okay. Yeah, I imagine if we do, or when we do Basket Case, we will probably find that it's the same pairing.
Probably so. Actually, I don't think so, because Basket Case was 4 years before Brain Damage.
Okay, maybe not.
But here's the thing, Joe. So many people in the industry thought Basket Case was a fluke, like a one-hit wonder, if you will. But that changed after the release of Brain Damage. So if you remember, the company that distributed that movie hated it and they buried it. So the movie flopped theatrically and it got terrible reviews. 6 months later, it got released on home video and was immediately discovered and labeled like an instant cult classic, you know?
Of course. Oh my God. We have VHS to thank for saving so many films, or at least reputationally, right? Like, I'm thinking of how many films we now consider cult classics were saved probably by VHS rentals and sales.
And what is the modern equivalent of that, Joe? Because I feel like we don't get a lot of movies made like this anymore. And if they do, they're like legitimately bad. And I get it. It's a scale, you know, it's all subjective. But like,
sure,
we don't get exploitation films like this anymore, even on like the dredges of streaming.
I think you kind of nailed it. It's people try to actively make movies like this where they think, oh, I'm going to purposely make a bad movie, as opposed to I'm making a very weird exploitation, you know, kind of button pushy, but still interesting, still well crafted. I'm not going to lie, not all of the practical FX looks super great. I mean, some of it looks amazing, and then some of it looks like mannequin body parts. And I think that both work in equal measure, but like, we wouldn't get any of that because we would just get absolute dog shit CGI that somebody did, 2 minutes in AI being like, give me sex worker body parts explosion. I
also think maybe in the current, like, maybe more sensitive climate, people just are afraid to be offensive. And again, like you said, this movie's offensive. Sure. And I think especially by today's standards, it is offensive. But like, I mean, again, I don't think it's not a mean-spirited offensiveness, if that kind of makes sense.
And it feels a little bit knowing,
Right.
I may be just reading goodwill into the film, but I feel like Henenlotter is in on the joke. This is a bit of an understanding. I know that I'm dealing with very sensitive issues and I'm sort of taking the piss, but also there is commentary in this movie.
Well, actually, then I'm going to follow that. I was going to say this for the end, but I'm going to just say it right now. So there's a really good quote from Henenlotter about like kind of just exploitation and then this movie, but he says, usually you don't have the money to compete with Hollywood, so you compete by making it about something that Hollywood isn't interested in embracing.
Right.
Anytime Hollywood has embraced a controversial subject, there's been an exploitation film or 100 who have been there first. Mm-hmm. So, if you want to dissect everyday misogyny, why not through a man reconstructing his dead girlfriend from prostitute spare parts?
Yeah. I mean, that commentary still plays exceedingly well 35 years later.
Very much so. Okay, so yeah, Brain Damage becomes a cult classic, and it was then that industry people started thinking, oh, maybe Henenlotter can be a real filmmaker, giving him a bit of clout in the industry.
All right.
So in between 82's Basket Case and 86's Brain Damage, Henenlotter had written a script called Insect City that he hoped to get revived after the home video success of Brain Damage, but everywhere he took it, everyone was appalled by it. Like, said, no, no, this is unfilmable. You cannot make this. And I didn't do more digging into what exactly this was. I don't know if it's out there, but I really want to read this script now to see what this is, because he could not get it made.
Okay, interesting. I mean, that title alone is not my favorite, but I'm also having flashbacks to our very brief discussion. I have no idea why we would have been talking about this, but apparently in some episode we were talking about Joe's Apartment, which was that Jerry O'Connell.
Yes.
And a bunch of people commented and said, oh, actually that movie is very good and you should watch it because it's far more interesting than you're both giving it credit for.
I don't remember what it was. It might have been Panic Room, but it was something about the guy, whoever did the CGI cockroaches, did the effects for one of the films we covered.
Right, sure.
But anyway, so luckily for Henenlotter, a man by the name of Jim Glickenhaus, the director of the 1980 vigilante film The Exterminator, which is apparently an exploitation cult classic.
Okay.
He had recently started his own production and distribution company called Shapiro Glickenhaus Entertainment to distribute low-budget horror and action films at the height of the home video industry.
Love it. Get that cash.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, Glickenhaus was a director himself, so Henenlotter was a huge fan of The Exterminator, so one day he just goes to see Glickenhaus and pitch him Insect City. And while Glickenhaus was the least appalled out of all the people he pitched to,
oh my god, that bar.
they both eventually came to the conclusion that no one would ever pay money to see it. So,
I quibble with that statement, by the way.
Well, maybe in 1990. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
Glickenhaus asks him, okay, well, what else you got? And Henenlotter actually had nothing, but he wasn't going to let this opportunity just pass him by. So
no, of course not.
He quickly racked his brain while sitting in front of Glickenhaus, and one thing that jumped into his mind was that he loved the 1962 film The Brain That Wouldn't Die, about a mad scientist who discovers a way to keep dismembered body parts alive. Mm-hmm. And he thought it'd be really cool to fuse it with an old-fashioned Frankenstein movie. And I guess all this is happening in the span of like milliseconds as he's like trying to answer Glickenhaus's question of what else you got.
Sure, just going through your head. What you got? You got any money? You got any films?
So he just started ad-libbing the plot for Frankenhooker, a film he had not thought about at all before this moment. And basically, Glickenhaus started laughing, and the more he laughed, the more ideas came to Henenlotter. And that's basically how Frankenhooker came to be.
Okay. Also, the quickest of searches on Insect City merely says it was a homage to the giant bug movies of the 1950s. But that doesn't sound offensive or provocative at all. So yeah, folks, we are going to need details. Internet sleuths, do your thing, because
someone's getting raped by a bug in that movie.
Oh, boy.
Like, I can guarantee you that's at least part of it. Okay, so here's the thing, though. So he finishes his Frankenhooker pitch again, and also he has to remember all this later because he has to go write the script.
Sure.
It exists.
God, what did I say in that meeting? Fuck.
That's pretty much exactly what he thought. And so he finishes his pitch, and Glickenhaus goes, "Okay, cool. What else you got?" And again, not wanting to waste a good opportunity, Henenlotter goes, "Well, there's always Basket Case 2, which people have been asking me about for years." And so Glickenhaus just goes, "Cool. Here's $3 million. Split it in half. Make both movies back to back." And that's exactly what happened.
Oh my God. I love that story. That's great. Just like, yep, I got nothing, but I'm going to say that I do. And you're going to give me $3 million and I'm going to make 2 movies.
I also love the low budget thing of filming things back to back. And this goes back to when we covered Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3.
Right, yes. I mean, sometimes it can turn out disastrously wrong. See some of those later entries in the Hellraiser franchise. But every once in a while, yeah, it's like, we've got everything that we need. We've got the money. Why not just do it all at once?
Mm-hmm. So again, Henenlotter walks out of this office in a fugue state being like, oh shit, I need to write Frankenhooker. Like, what did I say in that meeting? Mm-hmm. But he's not like just a screenwriter, so he calls up Bob Martin. Bob Martin, at the time, was just transitioning out of his position as the editor of Fangoria. And I know, and Henenlotter asked him to co-write the script with him. And so you might think that a soon-to-be former magazine editor is an odd pick for a screenwriting partner.
No, I actually think the opposite.
Well, Henenlotter loved his writing for Fangoria, but also loved the novelization he wrote of, what else? Brain Damage.
Oh, okay, I was going to say Basket Case.
You were close. You were very close.
I had a 50-50 shot, admittedly.
Yeah, exactly. And it started with a B.
Also true, yes.
So they wrote the script together, but there were two things they couldn't figure out in the script. One was the ending. Like, they had no idea how to end this movie. Apparently, the ending came well into production.
Okay.
We'll talk about the ending, of course.
Well, yes.
But there was also an issue of Jeffrey, the main character, killing people, because Henenlotter wanted him to be sympathetic, even though he tried to, quote-unquote, fix his, I'm using big air quotes for this, fat girlfriend.
Oh my God. When she describes herself as fat, I was like, A, there's a bunch of padding around your hips. You know, I've seen this on Drag Race, only worse.
Yeah.
And also just like, ma'am.
Oh,
ma'am.
I think the padding in this, any drag queen would watch this movie and be like, that padding is not right, because
it is not okay.
Looks like padding.
Yeah. Like, did she eat a couch? What's going on?
I know. Oh, yeah. So he couldn't envision Jeffrey slicing women apart. He was like, it's going to make him not sympathetic if he's just going out and killing a bunch of sex workers.
Sure, yeah.
So add to the fact that Henenlotter also never saw this as a gory horror film. He always viewed it as a comedy. And so I think that's when they decided to make the exploding sex worker scene more of a fireworks display than a blood and guts display. And also take away his complicity in the thing. Because the film goes really out of its way to be like, no, they are drug-hungry sex workers, and it's not his fault that they're there.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. That entire scene is just so many fun notes.
It is like the piece de resistance of this film. If you see any scene from Frankenhooker, watch the super crack scene.
Oh my God. Even the fact that we're calling it super crack in 1990.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to shooting, they did shoot Frankenhooker before Basket Case 2 because it required more visual effects. The plan was to shoot Frankenhooker for 6 weeks, take a 3-week break, and start on Basket Case 2. And that is what happened, except for the special effects team. They were pretty much working like consistently throughout the break, throughout everything.
Yeah, just pedal to the metal, right?
Yeah. So Frankenhooker was filmed from mid-June through early August of 1989, and there were issues.
Okay.
So, unlike some of Henenlotter's previous films, Frankenhooker was a union film, which means he needed to use actors who were part of the Screen Actors Guild, SAG.
Oh, okay.
He ran into an issue finding, and I quote, good-looking gals who would do nudity. So he called up a SAG person, I'm assuming the chairman or the membership person of SAG, and was like, look, I'm going to do whatever it takes to find girls who will do this, so I'm going to hire who I want, and you can accept them into SAG or tell me to fuck off.
Interesting, because we often have a joke now that if somebody works on a production and they get a single line of dialogue, it's like, oh, there, they got their SAG card. So part of me thinks, oh, I wonder if a bunch of these women ended up getting into the Screen Actors Guild because they happen to be in this film. And Frank Henenlotter was like, I needed some beautiful babes.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. Luckily for him, SAG accepted all of the girls he found. So all the girls in this scene, whether if they weren't part of SAG before, they sure were after this movie.
Fantastic. I love the idea of these women getting into SAG with lines like, do you want a party?
So the issues don't stop there, though. So the first director of photography that Henenlotter had for Frankenhooker, he had a great track record and everyone liked him. And, you know, he went through pre-production and everything and it was all good. I don't know this guy's name. Henenlotter would not give it for obvious reasons.
I'm assuming he's not going to make it to the end of the production.
Well, so when they started shooting, this guy would just disappear from the set. Like, he would set up a light and then walk off set.
Okay.
After several instances of this happening, this DP finally came forward and said he had some mystery illness and could only work certain hours. And if they couldn't accommodate that, then he needed to have his pay rate doubled.
Okay, so he's either a vampire or it's extortion.
Yes. So Henenlotter fired him and shot the first half of Frankenhooker by himself.
Ooh, I think that's also against union rules, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably so, but he also handled the lighting, which is not something he was experienced with. He did get a new DP halfway through production. So again,
yikes.
Like 2 weeks into this 5.5-week production.
Right. But still, I imagine it's all hands on deck. We're doing super long hours because, I mean, you got to make it happen.
Well, and that's the thing. This film didn't go over schedule. So, like, despite all these issues, like, he
still delivered the print on time.
He did. So, like, and, you know, you can tell this is a low-budget film. But for the most part, I mean, I was like, if you would have told me the director, who is not an experienced cinematographer, shot this movie, I wouldn't have guessed that, actually.
Yeah, there was nothing glaring where I thought, oh, this is not filmed properly.
I mean, I don't think it's shot, like, exceedingly well, but it's not bad.
As you said, we're here for the comedy. We're here for the wackadoodle shit. So at the end of the day, I'm willing to let a lot of things, you know, sort of fall by the wayside.
Yeah, we're grading on a scale or a curve. It's fine.
There we go. The exploitation scale.
Absolutely. Luckily, Henenlotter did not have the same issue with the special makeup effects, as he rehired, again, Gabe Bartalos, who did the makeup for Brain Damage. Fun fact, the Frankenhooker makeup that actress Patty Mullen had to wear took 3 hours a day for her, 3 weeks of filming.
Okay.
But she was apparently always a joy, never complained. The Blu-ray of this, again, there's not a bunch of special features. It's a commentary with Henenlotter and Bartalos. It is a 10-minute interview with Patty Mullen and a 10-minute interview with one of the other sex workers.
Okay. You mean actresses who was playing a sex worker?
Yes, exactly that. Although I do think a lot of them, like, I'm pretty sure Mullen was a Penthouse, like, Penthouse wasn't Playmate of the Year, but, like, Pet of the Year, I think.
Yeah, I definitely saw that she had a background in working with either Hugh or whoever was in charge of Penthouse.
Yeah, so yeah, Mullen was the August 1986 Penthouse magazine Pet of the Month, and 2 years later was selected as the 1988 Pet of the Year.
Okay, it's hilarious. I actually knew before watching this, like, basically this was on my radar for a couple of different reasons, but I did know that she had a background in... I'm even hesitant to call it sex work if it's kind of like nudes for an established magazine. Like, I guess that is still kind... I don't know. I don't know where the litmus test is. But,
I would call it modeling.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you for saving me.
Yep,
I knew that she wasn't a professional actress, but I have heard nothing but rave reviews about her performance, albeit it is very short. You know, you warned me she's not in this movie a ton, but when she is on screen, she is the most interesting thing on screen. Yeah,
I think that was, again, the main thing taking points away from this movie for me is the fact that, the titular Frankenhooker is only in the last 25 minutes of this movie. And, you know, that's more than The Bride of Frankenstein was in. So maybe I should have expected that. But that we spend so much time with just Jeffrey it's not my favorite part of the film.
Yeah, and I don't dislike James Lawrence, but... if we're making direct comparisons to the other Henenlotter texts that we've seen, I would much rather watch Rick Hertz as Brian in Brain Damage than this guy. And again, it's not like he's bad. I'm not as interested in him.
I don't think he's as charismatic enough to carry me through to get to the Frankenhooker parts. And again, it's fine, and maybe it'll play better with the crowd, but like this, I think we also have to take into account, though, that the audience for this movie are boys.
Right. Yeah.
So I actually would love to see a female director. I mean, I know we say this all the time, but I would love to see a female take on this film.
I mean, the reason that we have to keep saying it, Trace, is because we continue to get mostly male takes on every fucking subject, which is not to say any men need to retire or anything. It's just, wouldn't it be great if we could just have a little bit more gender parity?
Exactly. So, okay. Filming was completed, and the time came to get an MPAA rating, and Henenlotter was contractually obligated to deliver an R-rated film as opposed to an X-rated one. So,
okay, I foresee problems.
That was another factor, though, in limiting the gore. Again, this isn't really a gory movie, and if there is gore, it's all presented comedically.
Very much so, yes.
So then, supposedly, Richard Hefner, who was the head of the ratings board at the time, and I say supposedly Richard Hefner because Henenlotter's like, I heard it was Hefner, but I'm not sure if it was. I wasn't on the call.
Oh my God. Sorry, I'm just like spitting out because I'm like, wait, any relationship to Hugh Hefner? Because then we've got a Playboy versus Penthouse drama, and that's probably where this is all coming from.
Actually, maybe that's why.
No, I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's not.
But anyway, so supposedly Richard Hefner called the secretary of the production company after the screening of Frankenhooker and said, congratulations, you just made the first film that is going to get an S rating. And the girl was confused, and she was like, S for sex? And he goes, no, S for shit. Just kidding, we're giving you an X rating.
I'm imagining a guy with a giant cigar on the phone being like, get me the dame in Henenlotter's office because this movie is shit.
Well, and here's the thing, though. Like, they still gave it an X rating. And what in this movie, like, do you think really merits a, like, no one under the age of 17 at all, period, even with a parent, can see this movie?
I think it's just the subject matter. It's considered offensive, like public moral decency, outcry, etc. We can't be having a movie that presents sex work and features like copious uses of crack and just like let vulnerable 17-year-olds watch it.
I guess so. But luckily, the company stood behind the film and said, fuck it, we're not going to take that X rating, and we're not going to take the R rating either, even if they give it to us. We're going to go out unrated.
Yes, I love an unrated. Back when unrated meant something and it wasn't just like, we're releasing this with a big unrated sticker on the VHS to try to sell more copies.
Well, and this is a rarity at the time. I mean, again, almost no studio would ever, like, say fuck you to the MPA. Because again...
Not a studio, no.
Well, and it hurts, like, where your film is going to get shown. So, like...
Where it gets shown and where it gets advertised.
Well, and so they did prepare a home video version for certain video stores like Blockbuster that would not carry an unrated film.
Yeah.
A version that Henenlotter wished had never been released. But they also, like, again, if you were not at one of those video stores, you were seeing it like where it was actually like released. You were seeing the unrated / X-rated version in print the entire time, which just wasn't common in the early 90s.
Nice. I kind of love the audacity, though.
Mm-hmm. Now, Frankenhooker, though, wasn't super well received when it came out. We are looking at a...
This story sounds familiar, Trace.
I know. Well, yeah, it's a cult hit. But, I mean, we're looking at a 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty good. And Letterboxd users have given it a 3.5 out of 5 or a 7 out of 10.
Okay, curious. What did you give this movie?
I gave it 3.
Oh, okay.
I could maybe give it a 3.5. I mean, again, it's a different, you know this, it's a different experience watching one of these types of films on your couch alone in the middle of the day.
That is true. With the sun streaming in and you're just like, what am I watching right now?
Yeah, so I'll report back again after that screening next week.
Okay. Yes, I'm so excited to see the exit cards from your audience.
But nevertheless, the big get for this film's marketing was a quote from one Bill Murray. And
not who I thought you were going to say.
This is the one story that I found in all of my research. Like, if you research Frankenhooker, like, the Bill Murray story always comes up. But
tell me everything. I know nothing.
Okay. So Bill Murray was mixing his film Quick Change in the daytime, and Henenlotter was mixing in the same studio at the evening.
Okay.
So they were overlapping, and Murray was seeing all their stuff and couldn't be any friendlier. And he started watching some of Frankenhooker and then just started hanging out in the editing room with Henenlotter. And then eventually he was like, oh, well, can I see Reel 2? And stuff like that. And so someone at Shapiro Glickenhaus got wind of it, and they started calling Bill Murray's office and asking for a quote.
Right. I mean, sure, why not? What have you got to lose? He says no, you walk away. He says yes, you've got something you can work with.
But Henenlotter was actually developing like a rapport and a genuine friendship with this man, and all of a sudden the company that's producing and distributing his film goes, oh, hey, we hear you're close with Frank. Do you want to give us a quote? So it's like, it's a bit sycophantic.
Okay, yeah, that is a bit gauche. It makes sense if it came from Henenlotter himself.
Yes, exactly. So Murray didn't even return the calls about the quote, and Henenlotter was humiliated that they'd even ask. And, you know, he's like, oh, well, he never gave us the quote, and that was that.
Okay.
So, one day, Henenlotter was walking toward the offices and saw Bill Murray walking a couple of feet ahead of him, and he was embarrassed, so he just, like, walked slower and slower to increase the gap between them.
Sure.
But then every time he slowed down, Bill Murray also slowed down. And eventually, Murray stopped walking and just turns around and goes, Frank! And so they start talking, they get in the elevator in the offices, and Henenlotter just goes, Bill, I am so sorry, I apologize, I have nothing to do with them asking you for a quote, I am so embarrassed, please, you've been so generous and kind, like, please accept my apology.
Nice, okay.
Yeah, and so Murray's like, really? You had nothing to do with it? And he's like, I swear to God, I had nothing. And he goes, okay, I'll give it to you. Here's a quote. And right there in the elevator, he said, if you only see one movie this year, it should be Frankenhooker. And that was the last time Henenlotter ever saw Bill Murray.
Oh, I mean, that's delightful, but also a bit of a sad ending.
A sad ending, but hey, the quote's on the boxes of the Blu-ray.
It is indeed, because I have seen that quote.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's found a cult following, and now we're watching it, so yay.
Yay. So I'm guessing it made like no money or no money that you can find.
I mean, it didn't there's no box office reporting for this film.
Yeah. The black hole of just like certain periods, right?
But I will say that Henenlotter said like with this company, he would have worked with them for the rest of his career if he could, but the exploitation circuit started dying in the mid-90s because all the theaters that screened those films shut down.
Right. It just still feels too early. Like, I don't know. Well, actually, that's not true. I don't know when Basket Case 2 and 3 comes out, so I don't know the exact timeline, but it feels like he still had more movies in him.
Yeah, Basket Case 2 comes out the same year as Frankenhooker. Basket Case 3 comes out just a year later in 1991, but Henenlotter is on record as saying he hates that movie. He really likes the second one because it does a full Gremlins 2, where it's like a completely different approach to the thing.
Okay.
But Basket Case 3, he's like, no, like that is a hot pile of shit.
All right, then.
Yeah.
Okay. So we open this movie in a house in Hohokus, which I have to assume is, I mean, maybe it's a real place in New Jersey, but the New Jersey accents are thick in this movie.
It's supposed to be because Hoboken is a city in New Jersey, so
right.
Hohokus is I don't know.
A satire of it?
Is it a portmanteau of something? I don't know what word it would be.
Yeah. But yes, this is where I'm going to say protagonist in quotation marks, Jeffrey Franken, who is played by James Lawrence, lives. And he is introduced in the film giving a minor lobotomy to a brain with an eye that lives in a jar. So we are definitely in mad scientist territory.
This also feels very brain damagey, right?
Very much so. But also, I mean, huge sections of this film feels very indebted to Reanimator, but not in a mean-spirited way.
No. This feels like a lower budget, maybe less polished version of Reanimator the entire time. We're just missing, like, the Barbara Crampton character. I guess that's the Frankenhooker.
Well, yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
So, Jeffrey is trying to perform these experiments, and we very quickly realize he doesn't have a great sense of, like, space and time and what is socially appropriate, because we learn that he is doing this on the kitchen table of his mother-in-law-to-be at the backyard barbecue of his father-in-law-to-be on his birthday.
I gotta say, everyone, just to take this immediately, we are recording this the day before Final Destination Bloodlines comes out, and that both of these movies have backyard barbecue lawnmower incidents is hilarious to me.
Yeah. Well, you know what? A true classic never goes out of style.
Honestly, it makes me wonder if the Final Destination bit is an homage to Frankenhooker.
Probably not. I mean, the lawnmower that runs somebody over in an accident is pretty... Like it is. It's a classic. We've done it so many times before.
Name me another movie besides Dead Alive.
The Happening.
That's not a lawnmower. That's like a thresher of some kind.
Oh
Fuck.
my
God. It's not a thresher. Wait, no. We've been through this before because I had to look it up. And I was like, wait, a thresher is not what I thought it was.
Yeah. Because you're wrong and I'm right in this.
I don't think it's a lawnmower. It's like a farming tool.
Okay, we're not going back to this. You know what? When we cover The Happening, you can elaborate on it.
Yeah, exactly. We'll do that. I'm gonna look up what that fucking piece of machinery is.
Oh my God. No, you're going to stay here in the recording with me.
No, when we cover The Happening, I'm going to look it up.
Okay, sounds good.
When,
Talk to you next Earth Day.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so yes, he is performing this experiment on the kitchen table, and, you know, we're also trying to have this barbecue. So he ends up getting lured outside after Mrs. Shelley, that is the mother of his girlfriend, fiancée, wife-to-be. She is played by Joanne Ritchie. She basically is like, hey, I need to get around you. Can you please move your shit? So then we go outside and we're introduced to Henry. That's JJ Clark, her husband, who is, yes, celebrating this birthday. Neither of these two characters really matter. We won't see them again. But
I think actually that's an issue for me too. I wish there were more fun side characters in this movie.
Yeah, it's just a little too much Jeffrey all the time. And I do think that there's opportunities for some of these supporting people to pop. We just don't really go back to them. And I said pop because a bunch of people explode.
They sure do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's meet Jeffrey's fiancée, Elizabeth, who is played by Patty Mullen. And here she is just a normal girl. She is far too desperately in love with her questionable fiance. So, yes, she's introduced eating pretzels and she's fat.
Oh, she's so, I'm talking like skinnier than Bridget Jones fat, by the way.
Oh, yes. And I think she's actually, like, in addition to the bad drag queen padding, I do think that she's either wearing bulkier clothes or something, because when we see her later in the film, she's skinny as a rake.
Yeah, I mean, again, she's a fucking penthouse pet
of
the
model.
year. Yeah, like they're filming this a year after she was pet of the year.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, we very quickly get some backstory via Elizabeth to this friend of hers, and we learn that Jeffrey is a bioelectrician who has been kicked out of multiple medical schools. But, because they're getting married, she was totally comfortable letting him staple her stomach. And you're just like, what the fuck?
She's tried every single, like, weight loss trick out there, and she even as far as to let Jeffrey staple her stomach, but, like, it doesn't stop her compulsive eating. And I'm like, wow, okay.
I mean, these are character traits. We won't really revisit them except for the fact that when we start to talk about things like the perfect body, right? We will pivot away from what Elizabeth, quote unquote, looks like right now.
I tried to think too. I was like, honestly, this is the type of film where I would be totally okay if they just hired some like actual, like really like fat actress in this role. And when we get her head on Frankenhooker, I guess we have to have her head though, so we can't really do that.
Yeah, because we don't have the green screen technology. We don't have that kind of FX.
Well, I mean, no, I'm just saying, like, you cast her with a completely different woman when she is the Frankenhooker, but like it wouldn't work if you don't have the original actress's head. And you would have to not have that for my plan. But
well, the danger is that we end up in something like Death Becomes Her Goldie Hawn territory, right? Where we're basically just putting a skinny actress into a fat suit for the purposes of then being able to show her be skinny later.
Sure, but I find that more forgivable in an exploitation film.
You're dancing on a thin line here, buddy.
To me, there aren't really any. There's no morals in exploitation.
There is no lines
films.
in exploitation, right?
The lines are gone. So, like, if I'm going to see something and not feel guilty about watching it, it's this kind of film.
Yeah. You got any lines? You got any exploitation? Okay, but these two kids are gonna get married. Maybe that's part of her eating compulsion, is she realizes Jeffrey is not a suitable life partner.
I mean, there's worse things to munch down on, like a binge eat than pretzels.
Honestly, I was like, girl, pretzels are not that bad. It's a little bit of salt, it's a little bit of carbs. Like, I have a sugar addiction. Mine wins.
Yeah, and she really likes pretzels.
Well, I mean, we'll see her eat them a couple times in the film. Yeah. Okay. So Elizabeth then presents her father with a gift that Jeffrey has prepared, which is a remote-controlled lawnmower that she is not facing when she begins to work the remote on. Folks, can you see the joke coming from a mile away? But is it still funny? The answer is yes.
I think it's actually funny because the movie telegraphs it so early. Even with Jeffrey saying, long before she actually dies, don't stand in front of it. So I think the movie is just, again, it's really embracing the stupidity of the situation.
Oh, absolutely. Because there is no reason. Like, even if you get nicked by a lawnmower, I have been nicked by a lawnmower. You don't get run over and completely sprayed upon a crowd, as we will later learn is what happens.
Or all those other films that you talked about where this happens.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's movie magic, folks. We just go along with it, but it is hilarious. I mean, we see nothing, as you said, because we're not really going for the gore. So we just get a spray of blood on a garden gnome, and then we're into credits.
Yep. Smash the title card. And these credits, by the way, go on for this reeks of we need to pad the runtime. Because the credits, the end credits for this movie start at the 80-minute mark.
And this movie is 82 minutes?
84, but yes.
84, yeah. She's a short movie, but yes, we are padding the runtime just a smidge. Although I will say the credits are doing some storytelling work because as we watch the credits, we are hearing Jeffrey mutter, and he is drawing over a life-size anatomical drawing of a woman's body with a photograph of Elizabeth's head in place of the head. But he's getting super pedantic. Like, if you listen closely, he's talking a lot about voltages, which will come into play with the way that people pop in this film. But also, he's talking about things like, should he remove a mole from her body?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I feel like, because this guy did improv a lot on the set, and Henenlotter said basically, like, if I laughed at what he said or did, then I kept it in the film. And there were very few times when I didn't laugh.
Okay. Again, I don't think it's bad. He's definitely playing this quirky scientist, socially awkward character, and it is working. I think it's just more, I wish that there were other people for him to maybe play off of.
No, 100%. And that's, again, going back to Reanimator, like, we have the Barbara Crampton character, and he has a guy friend in that movie, too. So it's like, there's like a trio at our center, but here it's really just Jeffrey.
Yeah, it's Jeffrey on a series of episodic adventures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so we don't really get a time lapse, but clearly some time has passed, and Jeffrey is looking very sleep deprived in these new scenes post-credits. He's also not processed his grief in any meaningful way, so we see him pop out a VHS tape from a copy of Grey's Anatomy, and he watches the news report from one Judy Graff at 8 News Alive.
I love that it's called 8 News Alive.
It's hilarious, but I had to type out this entire sentence.
Good.
Because I was in love with it. Like wood through a mulcher. Ooh, a mulcher. There we go.
Okay.
The girthful bride-to-be disappeared beneath the blades of the berserk mower that sent her personality raining down upon the horrified birthday revelers.
In a blaze of blood, bones, and body parts, the vivacious young girl was instantly reduced to a tossed human salad. A salad that police are still trying to gather up. A salad that was once named Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine the gall of calling some poor dead woman who died in a tragic accident like, she's a human salad? It's so offensive.
This was like the first big guffaw of the movie for me. Like, this is A+ comedy.
This is a good litmus test. If you watch this and you're just like, oh, I don't think that's funny, or that's in poor taste, or this just isn't tickling the funny bone, like, pull the parachute, folks. Get out.
I have news for you, and by you I mean all the listeners. Like, if a critique of a movie is that's in poor taste,
Trace is there laughing in your face.
Yeah,
probably.
we're not gonna get along.
No, we're gonna have to fight. Throw down in the parking lot. 2 minutes. Take off your rings. Take off your earrings. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so this is hilarious. I loved it. But we also learn from this news piece that there are body parts missing, which folks are watching a movie called Frankenhooker, so you probably assumed we are going to build a body at some point in this film. Of course, we are going to have Jeffrey with body parts in this external freezer.
I do love that the cop is like, though, we're missing some body parts, but we don't know how much they are. She's a jigsaw puzzle, and I'm like, there aren't that many body parts to this body. So I feel like an inventory is pretty easy to do, but whatever.
Yeah, we definitely see that there's about 5 parts that he has. So, I mean, maybe we truly did spray Elizabeth everywhere and we could not put the Humpty Dumpty pieces back together or something. But the pieces that Jeffrey has are quite big.
Well, and we do learn at this point that the big thing that's missing is her head. Elizabeth's head is missing.
Yes. Okay, so Jeffrey's mom comes in. She's played by Louise Lasser.
Okay, the Louise Lasser.
Mm-hmm. How do we know her?
Okay, so not a lot of people will know her as the star of Mary Hartman. Norman Lear's like a satire of soap operas that aired in the 70s. Amazing show. I had to watch it in college. It's so funny. But horror fans probably know her because she is the Cuckoo Bananas mother in the Thanksgiving classic Blood Rage.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, the name definitely looked familiar. I've not seen Blood Rage, so
oh my God, Joe.
I was like, this woman looks familiar, but I can't place her.
Joe, we have to. Trust me, that movie is rife for our coverage.
I know. It's just one of those things where every time Thanksgiving comes around, people say that they're watching it, and it just feels like, that's right, there's only X many number of Thanksgiving horror films. It's like that and Christie and Thanksgiving.
And yet we've spent 6 Thanksgivings together in the course of this podcast, and we haven't covered any of those movies except for Thanksgiving when it went to theaters.
This is true, but also it's a very confusing time for me because my Thanksgiving is not your Thanksgiving.
Okay, well,
we'd have to pick one, is what I'm saying.
Do both. I don't give a shit, but no, you will love. It is so funny. It is so funny.
I have seen such commentary before, so yes, I'm not questioning, I'm not doubting. Yep.
Sure. But Louise Lasser, icon of the genre and soap operas.
Okay.
She was also Woody Allen's first wife.
I mean, that's less of a calling card.
No, I know, but that's again a thing. But it's there.
It's a thing she is known for better or worse. Yeah. All right, so she comes in, and her way of encouraging Jeffrey to move forward is that he should just find another girl. And he's like, this is the closest we get to some kind of moment of personal realization from this character throughout this film. Like, he looks very sleep deprived. He's clearly not functioning well. He talks about how he is dissociating more and more. He has no sense of right or wrong. And you're just like, oh man, this is a cry for help. Mom's going to do something to really help him out. And she's like, well, I could make you an egg salad sandwich.
Yeah, she's like, do you want a sandwich? There's like a long B, and she's like processing like his basically like suicidal ideation.
Right, yeah. My son is either going to go out and murder a bunch of women, or he's going to die by suicide.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I don't know what to say to this, so how about a sandwich?
Do you want a sandwich?
Oh boy. And unfortunately, this is the last that we will also see of this character.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things, and I'm just like, you have this camptastic woman, and you don't use more of her. I'm surprised, but
I wonder if maybe they didn't have these people. You know, again, a sort of shoestring budget.
Sure.
5 weeks, yes, sounds like a long time for a film shoot, but we know independent productions, it's probably like maybe they had her for one day. She did this scene and then she had to go and do other things.
Probably so. I do know that all of her audio was ADR because she had no voice from a sickness when she was filming the scene. So,
oh,
yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. See, that is like one of those, oh, you only know that because of the commentary.
100%.
Yeah. Okay, so we accompany Jeffrey out to his decked out garage lab, and we see that he has bubbling fuchsia liquid in the freezer. And then he fishes out a bunch of body parts so that he can have dinner with them. So he has Elizabeth's head, foot, hand, and finger, and he talks to her like she's still alive, like they're still dating, they're having a romantic dinner.
This is great. Like I think there's something just so morbid about this, and to the fact like the moment he pours wine down her throat and it pours out of her neck wound and floods the table, love it.
Yeah, and he acts as though she's managed to keep more of it down or in, and you just think, oh, Jeffrey, no.
You like that Beaujolais, don't you?
Oh. So he's also showing her pictures of potential bodies that he can offer her. And we should note that these women are all naked and they all look like centerfolds.
Oh, but it's the picture of her head like on the morgue table on top of these big-titted women. And he says something weird. He says, can't you picture yourself in this body kneeling on mom's couch in the basement? And I was like, kneeling? That's such a...
Like fellatio?
Yeah, I was like, is that... Yeah, just to give you head?
Yeah, like, are we making a fellatio joke? I definitely thought that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does also say, I can make you into anything you want. I just need the right parts.
But the problem is, though, it's not anything she wants. It's anything he wants. She has no say in this matter.
Literally that, yeah. So I'm going to introduce the first of a couple of references I'm using in this episode. This one is Ramona Peetz for a piece called Her Body Beautifully Mutilated, The Transsexuality of Horror and Montage, and it's for Otherness Archive. So Peetz is actually drawing from another individual named Carmilla M. Morrill, who wrote a thesis called Built Bodies, Representations of Monstrous Transsexuality in the Frankenstein film, 1945 to 1975. So stick with me here.
Okay.
In Morell's thesis piece, they write, bride narratives will feature frequently the doctor trawling countryside, catacomb, and city for only the most optimal parts from which to construct his creature, literally reducing women to pieces of meat, with brides comprised only of prime cuts. More often than not, especially in films set in their present day, the doctor will acquire these materials by killing sex workers and models. And this idea of needing the right parts can then be reinterpreted as a doctor requiring his trans patient to pass or fit a narrow set of conventions in order to even be considered for trans-affirming care. So... I should note that Peetz's reading goes into like a variety of other films and, you know, talks specifically about how montage can end up constructing a kind of transness onto films. But I was intrigued by this specific part that does address Frankenhooker, but this idea of like how we use selected parts and how that, I guess, codes a kind of transness. Like, You Need to Have the Right Part sounds like it could be from a Frankenstein film,
right?
But it also kind of sounds like a trans person who's looking for gender-affirming care when meeting with a doctor.
Yeah, they're like in an intake right now. No, I totally can buy into that. I think any films like a Frankenstein film, especially if we're dealing with gender specifically, like we do in this movie, I think any of them can lend themselves to a trans narrative like that, or a trans read like that.
Yeah. I'll bring Peetz back up a couple more times, but I just wanted this to sort of be percolating in the back of people's heads as we move forward.
For sure. Also, I want to offer a brief bit of context earlier, too. Hohokus, New Jersey is a real place.
Okay.
Which I did not know. But it's primarily an upper class and upper middle class suburb of New Jersey. So...
Oh, interesting. So that codes Elizabeth as like a bit of a catch for Jeffrey because everything about him sort of screams lower middle class at best.
Yeah, he like operates out of his basement. Yes, he does.
Well, I mean, he's also doing a bunch of illegal shit, so.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. Okay, so Jeffrey proceeds to read The Decapitated Head of Elizabeth, a terrible poem, and then he puts all these body parts back in the freezer.
Okay, I love that he puts the page of the poem like in one of the severed hands' fingers and then puts it back in the freezer.
Yes, yeah, take this with you. I wrote this specifically for you. I want you to have it.
But then comes one of the weirdest character beats in this movie. So... Jeffrey starts, like, to relieve stress, I guess, starts drilling holes into his head, or I guess an operation called self-trepanation.
Yeah. So basically, he's got a deadline. Like, we're working towards a goal. There's going to be a big storm in 2 days, which means he needs to get all of these idealized body parts in that short amount of time. And he does this in 2 different ways. So... the first time is he needs to brainstorm. So he drills into a certain part of his head. And this is when he's like, oh, well, if I need to buy the parts, then I can just tap into my like Christmas slush fund or whatever. And I'll just go and get sex workers. Like there's the light bulb aha moment. And then we'll see him do this again when he gets stressed out. And it's like a way of calming himself down. But it's presented so uniquely because we never see any blood come out of the holes.
And there's nothing left on the drill either.
No, but he doesn't also seem to suffer any kind of long-lasting effects. I mean, you could argue the entire film is symptomatic of the fact that he's been boring holes into his brain because he is not right in the head.
Yeah, but it also, like, it doesn't, like, we do this twice, I think, in the film. Maybe
twice.
3.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but it's like, so I'm also like, why is it here if we're not going to, like, really use this later?
Yeah, it feels like it's just offering us insight into his character and how he performs. Like, he is incredibly unorthodox. He's not going to approach a problem in the way that most everyone else would.
Yeah. Also, fun fact, though, the weatherman in the clip he's watching to find out the storm, that is John Zachary, the voice of Aylmer from Brain Damage.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we got, I want to say, like a close-up on the TV, and I thought, is this meant to be someone important? But of course, we never saw John Aylmer on screen in Brain Damage.
Yeah, exactly. I also love that he can't just wait for another storm.
No. It's got to happen now.
Yeah.
It would have helped if they had said, storm of the century or something like that.
The only storm for the rest of the year.
Right. Jeffrey, this is your cue. It's this one. You got to make it happen, man. Okay, so let's go check out some body parts, Trace. Jeffrey goes cruising on the strip, and he is appreciating the buffet. And I wrote in my notes, Jesus, there's like 50 sex workers here, because apparently in the 90s, that's how you made money if you were a woman, because it is just like street upon street of sex workers.
Well, a woman in New York.
I mean, also New York. It's a big city. It's not like we're saying this is, Idaho.
It's the red light district.
Yeah.
Julia Roberts is floating around here somewhere.
Oh my God, the Pretty Woman reference. Come on.
I mean, it was the same year.
It is, actually, yes. So one girl, Honey, who is played by Charlotte Helmkamp, who I could have taken way more in this movie.
Okay, honestly, me too. To the point where I thought she was actually going to become more of a supporting character, and then she dies.
Yes. Yeah. I was actually incredibly disappointed when she explodes. So she shows up and, he says, oh, well, I'm basically shopping for parts. And she immediately takes off her top and begins calling him Jersey Boy. When she sees him throwing around this giant wad of cash, she gets super excited. But he says that he needs to look at a bunch of girls because he's looking for about 7 or 8. But she knows he's got the money, so she says, okay, well, we can work with all of this. We just have to go and see Zorro.
I do love her acting whenever she gets really excited about the wad of cash. It will anticipate her reaction to finding the super crack later. But I really love how this actress just really commits to the bit. Like, she's operating at 11 for most of this movie, and it's fantastic to watch.
But, like, normally when we say, oh, it's an 11, we're thinking it's Nicolas Cage. Or
it's exhausting.
And it's not. Like, this woman is just so excited, and she's so full of life and energy. And yeah, she is driven by things like money and super crack. But I think especially because Jeffrey is so morose, right? He's the sad, mad scientist who just wants to get his girlfriend back. And then all of a sudden we pop in all of these, larger than life sex workers. But the movie really starts to come alive here.
Well, I also feel like the movie, I'm not going to say has like sympathy or empathy for the sex workers, but like I feel like this movie really loves the sex workers.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think it treats them like real people, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the, it's not exactly subtle, but it's also not exactly well thought out. Like, it's there, but it's not fleshed out. But, like, we are having a discussion about sex work as well as drug addiction in this film.
Well, because Jeffrey himself will have a whole conversation about, like, oh, well, like, why are we going after sex workers, because they're quote-unquote easy. No one's going to notice.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so let's go meet Zorro. We go into a club where we see, various people taking drugs. We see group sex in the stall. There's a threesome where this one guy, it seems like his entire responsibility is just to close the stall door.
I think so, yeah.
There's a guy who's just randomly preaching. It's, just a bunch of different types of characters.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah. You know what? It's a good time in New York City in 1990. So we've got Honey going up and kissing and also whispering something to Zorro, who is played by our returning favorite, Joseph Gonzalez, who we last saw soaping himself up in Brain Damage.
I was like, I knew I recognized that face. If I had seen the ass, I probably would have put it together.
Right? Yeah. He's wearing, I want to say tank tops or very tight shirts in this movie. But yeah, if I had seen the chest or the butt, I would have immediately recognized him.
Just put some suds on the ass and bam, Brain Damage guy. Totally. Don't know your name, but I know that ass.
Indeed. Exactly. Yeah. So this is obviously the pimp that Honey reports to, and he gives Jeffrey a quote and vaguely, intimidates him with his size, and also shows him a bag of pills. And I was confused because I feel like these are meant to be a stand-in for crack, but I have never seen crack in a pill form.
It's a crack rock, not a pill.
Those look like pills.
No, yeah, they're rocks in vials. They're rocks.
Okay.
It's just, it's a rock. You just put it in a little pipe and you light it up and you smoke it.
Okay.
They're always talked about in rock form.
I know, but we see them later on in this movie, and admittedly they're super crack, but we see them, like, they look like crystals, and these look not like crystals.
Maybe your eyesight's going bad.
Oh my god. Okay, we're moving on.
All right, here we go.
New Phineas and Ferb is here.
We're back, baby.
For 104 more days.
I know what we're gonna do today.
Of summer vacation.
I am ready for summer shenanigans. Let's do it. Oh, yeah.
All right. We're gonna bust Phineas and Ferb once and for all.
Are we gonna do this again?
New inventions, shenanigans, innators, adventures, and songs.
Brand new summer vacation.
New Phineas and Ferb starts June 5th on Disney Channel and next day on Disney Plus. On DisneyPlus.Disney.com.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Not everyone is careful with your personal information, which might explain why there's a victim of identity theft every 5 seconds in the U.S. Fortunately, there's LifeLock. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a U.S.-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year by visiting lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
So Jeffrey maybe has this tentative plan, right? So he's gotten approval from Zorro. He's going to meet with the girls at a later date to pick out the ones that he wants to move forward with. But in the meantime, we cut to Motormouth, which is a TV talk show, maybe a late night program. And we see that the guest of the hour is the leader of Hooker, which is hold on to our knowledge of equal rights.
I love this. This doesn't have to be in this movie.
Exactly. So this is the commentary, however slight. But this woman is arguing that you can't fight the drug epidemic unless you legalize sex work, which, by the way, is an argument I fully support. I definitely think we should be legalizing sex work.
How do you feel about legalizing drugs? Because that's also been an argument where it's like the drug epidemic will go down if you legalize drugs.
I mean, the fact that we still have people serving prison sentences for dealing... marijuana to me is baffling. But yeah, like, I truly do think that... I mean, you want to talk about finding finances for the government down there in the States? Like,
I know!
Legalize some drugs and you make a shit fucking ton of money.
You legalize cocaine and you will have all of Wall Street, like, at your heels.
But I mean, it also offered, like, folks, yes, we're being a little bit glib, but the reality is that then you can control the substance, you can offer protection for workers, you can actually recognize the labor that's involved and certain things. Like, we're not just saying, oh yeah, definitely go out there, like, legalize heroin and stuff, you know, reasonably, but there are ways to make it safer for all parties involved.
But nevertheless, back to the legalization of sex work, yes, that should obviously be a thing.
Yeah, because also then you wouldn't have people like pimps, because pimps are often an element of the patriarchy and very active in misogyny.
Well, and I'm just going to say this, you know, people like to think that sex work isn't like, people always forget the work part of sex work. And I'm just telling you right now, like, it is a lot of work.
The work is working. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So Jeffrey is watching this and he agrees with these statements, but he is also at work making a batch of super crack. So he's like, okay, well, I agree with you in principle, but in the meantime, I need this thing because it's going to get me what I need.
Yeah. His justification for this, I think this is one of your quotes at the beginning of the episode, but like, crack is going to kill them, but it's killing them already. I'm just speeding up the process. I'm just going to place this super crack in the vicinity of these people, and it's not my fault if they smoke it.
Yeah. This is Jeffrey's way of saying, oh, I can't be held responsible for things that other people do, but the reality is that Jeffrey is not a good character, right? Like, he is actively facilitating multiple people's deaths. He's not committing the murders, but he is contributing to them.
But he's also not, like, putting a sign on it that says, if you smoke this, you will explode, so make sure the high is worth it, you know?
Right, yeah. He could also be offering better protection and maybe regulation. I'm going to bring Peetz back in here because of this specific moment involving the conflation between sex work and drugs. So Peetz says, by having the film be so particularly focused upon sex workers, as well as the plight of sex workers in the context of the crack epidemic, we should note, like, 1990, this was a big fucking deal.
Mm-hmm.
Peetz continues, this repositions the film in the context of social problems that trans women are extremely familiar with. So, broad generalization, but there is statistics backing this up. Trans people, particularly trans women, increasingly find themselves in the sex industry, in part due to how the trans body is fetishized and for the way in which it is discriminated against in the traditional workforce. So the reality that Jeffrey would end up bumping into trans women specifically as he looks for sex workers in particularly New York City, while also trying to get around or maybe utilizing people's addictions.
Right.
Very, very high.
Yeah. But we don't have really that, because there isn't a huge queer. We get a drag queen later. Is that?
I read her as trans.
Interesting.
in the bar, right?
Yeah. I wasn't fully sure, but
I didn't know for sure either.
I don't really know if the people making this movie also know, but it's a man in a woman's clothing.
Yes, yeah. In 1990 in New York.
Yes.
So we don't know. It really could go either way.
Yeah.
Anyway. Any which way.
Anyway,
Yeah. Okay. So while Jeffrey is watching this, he does end up hallucinating a scene of Zorro berating Elizabeth. So he's actually already envisioning his fiancée, who he's trying to reanimate, in the role of sex worker, which I think is your unconscious is projecting things, Jeffrey. Maybe it's very telling.
It's a bit telling.
Yeah. So this is when he uses the drill a second time so he can calm himself down.
Well, actually, you could read this as he's penetrating himself.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying. Like, it's basically like, it's almost like he's worked
for
up.
a masturbation, so he can just like, you know what?
Yeah.
I need to get my brain back in working mode because I'm getting very anxious. So yeah, what can I do to calm myself down?
Yeah, but I don't think it's unintentional now that it's like, oh yeah, he has to penetrate himself. It just happens to be through his brain, his skull, not his butt.
Sure. Yeah. I never say no to a penetration read.
There you go.
But we do get our first taste of what the super crack will do when he gives this to his pet guinea pig, and this thing immediately explodes. And Jeffrey's response is, Jesus Christ, this could get ugly.
Which it will very shortly.
Yeah. Okay, so we go back to meet with Honey the next night, and she introduces him to the girls. So we have Angel, who is played by Jennifer Delora. We have Crystal, who is played by Leah Chang. We have Amber, who is played by Kimberly Taylor. Chartreuse, who is played by Heather Hunter. And then the rest of the girls I could not find names for because I also didn't stay to watch the credits. But we have Snow, Sugar, Anise, and Monkey. So Jeffrey wants to play doctor, so he has 30 minutes to measure various body parts, including the buoyancy of an areola, as well as a check mark on the butt, and we get to crawl through a parade of legs.
This is probably the most energetic and most fun scene without the Frankenhooker.
Mm-hmm.
I love the pun of, utterly awesome. Yes. This is a delight. And again, if you were a teenage boy watching this at a sleepover, boy oh boy.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a shopping montage or a makeover montage, right?
Yeah, no, shopping montage 100%. Or like trying on the new clothes montage.
Yeah, so he's essentially taking the girls for a test drive, trying to figure out who and what parts he likes the best. And when the 30 minutes come up, because it's Jeffrey, he's indecisive, he can't make up his mind. And this gets him into problems because Zorro is coming up to collect his bitches. But also, Honey has gotten into his bag because she's like, no, we need the money because the rest of us have to go out and work for a living, Jeffrey. Some of us work for a living.
I mean, he is working.
I mean, he says he's working. He's shopping. Let's be clear. So she ends up opening his bag and finds this gigantic freezer baggie of super crack, and the women go apeshit.
This is the funniest thing. Like, girls, the party ain't over yet!
Girls, the party ain't over!
These, they just take all their tops off, they're running around, they're smoking this crack, they're dancing with each other.
There's a lesbian makeout.
There's a lesbian makeout. They're practically gooning over all of this shit. And this may be a reach, but I was like, because you know the original Reefer Madness like kind of became...
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It got a second life on the exploitation circuit in the 70s, and so I would wager that
we're making fun of it.
Well, I think we're homaging it almost, because the way these girls are behaving around the crack is the same way a lot of the actors in the original Reefer Madness behave around weed.
Yeah, the outsized reactions to this, it is, I mean, you could say it's kids in a candy store or something, but every other priority falls by the wayside and they lose their goddamn mind so that we can just start smoking these giant crystals. And of course, we just saw what happened to the guinea pig. And Jeffrey is sitting there going like, oh no, don't do that. There's a treatment plan.
Actually, no. He is being genuine though. He is actually trying to get them to stop, but they're all on top of him.
Yeah. Well, there's 8 of them and 1 of him, and he's not a huge guy, but yeah, it's very clear that these women are going to go pop, and it's just a question of when.
And this is how Henenlotter gets around the whole like, oh, I need to keep Jeffrey sympathetic. And granted, I don't really think he's particularly sympathetic, but he's not he's more sympathetic than he would be if he had straight up murdered all these girls.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And also, are we going to say that this is in bad taste or poor taste? Yeah, but it's also fucking funny as hell.
Oh, and I'm going to say, okay, so like the effects, so these girls just start popping, you know? It's like,
they start
it's
going.
And there's no guts, there's no blood. It's like a fireworks display, basically. And
yeah.
I actually think that this looks really good. And obviously, so basically what happens is like we have the real actress, and then there's going to be a cut, and it's like a split second of a dummy that looks like the girl, and then she explodes. The dummy explodes.
Yeah.
Obviously, the dummies look very much like dummies. Like, these are not convincing anyone. But
no.
I'm going to say the editing in this scene is really good.
It's good. Yeah. I mean, as you said, like, we're not fooling the eye. No one is convinced that we are actually seeing these women explode. But it's seamless enough that your mind kind of goes, haha, that's a dummy. And then she goes,
there's even one, because usually it's pretty quick, you know, we cut to a girl, and then we bam, cut, like she becomes a dummy and then she blows up. But there's even one where one of the girls, she kind of like, we hold on her for a bit and she kind of rolls her head around.
Yeah.
And then she becomes a dummy and then she explodes. And I was like, that's kind of neat.
It shakes it up a little bit. You know, they don't all pop in the same... Like, they're not all assuming a particular position or anything. I also wanted to call out, there's a moment where one woman's leg goes flying, and we accompany it as if we are the point of view of the leg. And it made me think of Jungle Julia from Death Proof.
Oh, you know Tarantino has seen Frankenhooker.
I guarantee he has, yeah. So all this to say, all of the women pop except for Honey, and she, realizing that Jeffrey is somehow responsible for this, she begins to advance on him with a knife in preparation to stab him in the back, just as Zorro is breaking down the door, and then she pops at a very opportune moment to save Jeffrey's life, but we see her head boink Zorro, and she knocks him out as a result.
Yes.
But the sound effect is literally like, boink.
Oh, no, we get one of those too earlier, but I think some titties pop out, and we get like a boink like sound too. I was like, I love cartoonish sound effects.
It's very playful.
And then meanwhile, we have Jeffrey apologizing to all these corpses as he's picking up body parts.
Yeah, so he's going around the room, he's picking up all of these parts. They're so clearly mannequin arms and legs.
Oh,
it's hilarious.
I love it.
But yes, he does say his estrogen-based bath serum will make you feel like little girls again.
Oh, yeah, that's something we didn't really highlight. I know, little girls. But yeah, his whole operation only works on women.
Yep. Yes, it does. So he ends up taking the fire escape, and that allows him to get back to his lab. He begins to work quickly to assemble the body because the storm is a brewing. And we should note that he's still got time to be a little bit playful and stupid and very juvenile boy because, you know, he's weighing the boobs to decide which ones he likes. He's got my favorite image in this entire movie, Trace. There's basically just a bunch of legs with the foot sticking up. It's the way that you see things like a bunch of hockey sticks sticking out of something.
Yeah. But it's legs.
It's women's disembodied, amputated, exploded legs.
There you go.
We should note that one of the feet will not suffice because there's bunions and he uses a scraper. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it's really gross. Actually, this is the gross. That's the gross part of the movie for me.
I mean, yeah, because, and it's not like we're even seeing anything. We're just imagining what it looks like and what he's doing. But we should also note that there is some transphobia here because he picks up a pair of hands and he says, this is like a man's hand.
Yeah.
So I'll bring in another brief reference. So Amber Knapp did write a piece called Frankenhooker and the Attacks on Bodily Autonomy. I think this piece was written, I want to say, last month. That's how new it is. But it basically tracks just all of this transphobic legislation that is passing in the US right now and how this is very problematic, not just for, you know, reproductive health and that kind of stuff, but also basically just anyone who can bear children, anyone who identifies as women. You in danger, girl.
Yep.
But Amber writes that this immediately plays as, oh, well, if it's a woman who is masculine, then it's something scary and it must be discarded. Yes, undesirable. You know, we're shopping for body parts, and this is obviously not the right part, which I have so many thoughts about the ending, but I want us to kind of keep that in mind to where Jeffrey ends up at the end of the film. Okay, so the final detail that he needs to assemble is Elizabeth's head, of course. So he dumps all of these remaining body parts. Like, he's still under this misguided action that he's going to be able to rebuild these women or do something with the other parts.
I was confused by that too, because I was like, wait, but you're using some of the parts on Elizabeth, so you don't have enough parts to rebuild everybody.
No, absolutely. And like some of them fully exploded, so like those parts are just gone. Those women are done. So
well, no, I think he can just sew them back together.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah.
Or put their body parts in a freezer, and then they'll all come out and have their own lives of their own, and just do that.
I thought of society, but we will talk about it. Yeah. Okay. So everything else goes into the freezer, and then we put the body onto this raising platform. We open the roof of this lab because we are basically just doing Frankenstein, and the whole body goes up. It gets struck by lightning, but he also gets struck by lightning, and the cable to the freezer gets struck by lightning.
Which is important. Also, I think I caught this. So when he sends the body up, is it standing up or is it lying down?
Oh, it's lying down, and then it's standing up when it comes back.
That's what I thought. Okay, I thought I was forgetting something. I thought I was missing something.
I think you would be very forgiven for it. Like, I clocked it because I was just like, oh, I don't remember the body being in that position, but I rewound it to make sure.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, okay, so that's what happens. It comes down, and clearly something has worked under the sheet. So we pull it off, and I'm going to call this version Frankenhooker Elizabeth, because it is Elizabeth's face and body. Well, sort of. But she obviously has the characteristics of a sex worker. But we will get a different version that is more properly Elizabeth at the end of the film.
Yeah, so just call this one Frankenhooker and call the end of the one Elizabeth. But 55 minutes into this movie, we get Frankenhooker.
Yes. We should also note that for reasons unbeknownst to us or defying all logic in this movie, her skin has a slight purple glow to it, maybe because she was struck by lightning, but also she's dressed very provocatively in this really cutesy purple outfit.
Yeah. Also, because I know you said that she only says like sex worker-y things. All of her lines of dialogue are things the other sex workers were saying in the movie.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So she doesn't actually have any original thoughts of herself, but she does sometimes say lines that are being used in the proper context. So it seems like she's carrying on a conversation.
Yes, but I have to give credit for Mullen here because she really sells this, and the facial tick she does where she moves her lips in opposite directions, I was like, you're a comedian, girl. Like you should have done more comedies.
I can't remember if I said this at the end of last week's episode or if I said this to you offline, but it is Jim Carrey facial elasticity on par with The Mask.
Oh my god, no, you're spot on. It's a huge talent. I think that's why it's like, oh, I wish there was more of her, and even before she's Frankenhooker, you know? Like,
oh yeah. As Elizabeth, she's genuinely fun and funny. I mean, she's a bit too much of the doting perfectionist girlfriend, but, you know, to see her in that capacity and then this is a night and day difference.
Yeah.
And she's so fucking good. Like, she's just so
good.
The line deliveries.
You want some money?
Like, yeah, she has all these twitches. Like, the way she walks, her gait is so distinct. And she keeps it up for the whole runtime. Oh, the rest of the runtime.
Yeah, I mean, she's lumbering around because she's got these giant Frankensteinian platform shoes, and I mean, she knocks Jeffrey unconscious immediately because he does not give her the right response when she says, you know, you want a party? You got any money? And he's just like, Elizabeth, whack. And then she's out on the street, down in suburbia, hopping on the subway. I think it is interesting that, you know, she obviously looks very distinct. I like that the movie doesn't try to pretend like she can just blend in among people, but we do get a bunch of comments like, they may be ADR, but there's one woman on the subway who says, ugh, she looks like she could be contagious.
Oh, yeah. Also, this teen boy that just cannot stop ogling her in the subway.
But I think it's a gentle nod back to that conversation that we had about like sex work equals drug addiction equals, people that fall to the margins or the periphery of society, because like this woman is, she's acting out, but also everyone treats her like she has VD or something.
It's faint praise, but praise nonetheless. I'm actually surprised that we don't say AIDS in this movie.
Truly. Yeah. I wonder if it was just the wrong time, because at 1990, this movie gets made in 1989, it would have likely still been considered a gay thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. Like, well, I don't know, man. Like, sex workers in New York City, I feel like...
I mean, yeah, like we know for sure that it would have been affecting anybody who was sort of tangentially connected to the communities, but... Yeah,
I guess that's true. And yeah, okay.
It's, I think, right on the line in ways that we said much of the rest of this film is not anywhere near a line.
Yeah, that is true. Nevertheless, this whole sequence, because like this is kind of like the obligatory, like, oh, we have a horror movie set in New York, so they have to we have to show them in like Times Square running around or something. This is the Jason Takes Manhattan sequence of the film. Yeah, it is. We should also note that as we saw her leaving the lab, we do get to see the freezer start to shake a little bit. So we know something's cooking in the juice. Okay, so our Frankenhooker arrives at Times Square, and Jeffrey follows because he understands if she's looking for money, that's probably where she's going to go, because that's where the other girls were. But, she comes out of the subway, she just starts asking guys if they want dates. If they don't respond positively, she is tossing them, she is hitting them. She definitely throws one guy into traffic. We don't get to see the outcome, but it's funny. And then she meets a John who accepts her offer. So I'm going to call this guy a Danny DeVito lookalike. Okay.
Because he mostly looks like Danny DeVito.
Short, bald, and fat?
A little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So he's very interested in her, despite the fact that everyone else is, basically backing away quickly whenever they see her. But we take him into the motel, we get a room, and we start to have a good time. But it doesn't last long, because a single kiss and this guy's body gets superheated. We get to see the electricity bouncing around inside his open mouth, and then his body explodes. And Trace, did you like the moment where she's just holding onto his head and he exclaims, "Oh, that was just wonderful"?
In any other movie, I might have been like, this is too much, but it works for me here. This is also just because her facial looks, she does the lip thing again whenever he says this.
Yeah, as if she also appreciates it. I don't know. It's just the right amount of cheese and stupid silliness. Like, I'm so all in on this movie by this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this just feels like it should happen.
Yeah. So Jeffrey ends up arriving in Times Square. He's asking everybody, hey, have you seen my girlfriend? She's dressed all in purple. My favorite interaction among these is the Swedish guy, where the guy just yells at him and Jeffrey just goes, "What are you, some kind of Swede?" It's like, yes, Jeffrey, he is some kind of Swede.
Yeah, this is a vaguely foreign in appearance.
Well, and because it's fucking Times Square in New York, like, of course you're going to run into people who are there as tourists from other countries.
Yeah.
But Jeffrey's like, no, my girlfriend, she's purple.
I'm looking for a tall purple girl.
Exactly. So after dealing with our Danny DeVito John, Frankenhooker comes out and she's immediately assaulted by a guy who has a very unfortunate... the hair. You don't like the mullet, but it's kind of crimped. It's very not good.
Well, he dies immediately.
He does die immediately because he basically sexually assaults her. But I love the way that this is edited. Like, we see that he is about to go up because we see the electricity in his mouth, and then we cut to outside as his head bursts through the window and lands in a trash bin.
Honestly, I am a sucker in any movie where a body or a body part flies into a trash. I'm thinking of like in Valentine, whenever that blonde girl gets arrowed over the stairs and she just falls into a dumpster.
Yeah. No, it's another classic, right? It always works. It's always funny. And if you can nail the editing, it can often be quite dynamic, too.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this guy's just dead. We're racking up the bodies now. Jeffrey is still trying to find her, so he ends up asking other sex workers, because even though he decimated all of Zorro's girls, there's other sex workers out and about. Mm-hmm. So they're initially responsive because they think maybe he's a client, but they bail when they hear him asking about the Z or the Z. Because those are Zorro's girls. Mm-hmm. And
oh, yeah, because he brands them, too. I forgot.
Yeah, and I love that Jeffrey notices that it's a very poorly done. Like, it's not even a proper tattoo. It looks like he does it himself or something. Mm-hmm. So, Zorro, not a great guy.
Yeah.
But this does attract the attention of these girls' pimp, and I have to assume that this is a joke about Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, because when we get into this slight altercation, Jeffrey says, oh, I'm going to leave, and the guy's like, yeah, do the right thing.
Okay. I haven't seen Do the Right Thing since college, so I have no idea.
I can't remember the exact time, but I think it would have just come out.
Yeah, it's 1989.
Okay, there we go. So this maybe would have been a very topical reference.
Yeah, entirely possible, actually. And you know what? Good for Henenlotter, if that is the case, putting a little bit of class into this movie.
Well, and I think recognizing, I'm making a movie involving several racialized bodies, but also, people who get overlooked in New York City. It's like, okay, well, Spike Lee kind of did a similar thing.
or maybe that's all it is. It's like, oh, black people in New York City. Didn't that Spike Lee guy just make a movie about black people in New York City? Cool, here we go.
I mean, yeah, it could also be okay, I'm a white director and creative. I'll just pitch it over to that. Like, yeah, if I've got a black character in here, sure, I'll have him make Spike Lee references.
There you go.
Yeah. You know what? It could be either. It could be both.
Yeah.
Okay, so Frankenhooker she has stumbled into the club, and we see that Zorro is lamenting all of his lost girls, and...
I didn't lose them, man! They just blew up!
Yeah. So Frankenhooker, it's interesting, right? I don't know if she gets smarter as the film progresses, but she's able to cobble together some of the memories that she's inherited from these sex workers because she recognizes Spike, who is the bartender, played by Shirley Stoller, but she doesn't know well enough to keep away from the pretzels, which are in the bowl, as well as, I think this is either a friend of Zorro's or just some other shady dude in this club, Goldie, who is played by Paul Felix Montez, and Goldie sees an opportunity, so he takes this odd-looking sex worker over to the back of the club so that he can go down on her under the table.
This is great.
And of course, he just basically fries himself and explodes.
Touching this woman at all, just, you're done. You're done for.
Well, and it's a nice callback to all these moments that Jeffrey had when he was muttering over the credits, right? About the voltage. No, that's too high.
Right.
Oh, that could be too dangerous or something. So clearly it's like, if you're touching this woman, you're gonna get zapped.
I also think too, there's like a bit of a rape revenge film buried in this last act of the film. And it's a thing where it's like, if we ever got a sequel to this, like I would like, if we ever had gotten a sequel to this, like that's an avenue that I think would be really cool. Like, she's like this avenging angel, Frankenhooker.
It's funny that you said avenging angel, because there definitely is like that movie series Angel with the teenage prostitute who's honor student, teenage sex worker.
Oh, yes. Honor student by day, Hollywood hooker by night.
Yes, which PS is a subgenre I love.
That tagline alone, honestly.
Right? Yeah. And that box art, iconic. Folks, you know what we're talking about. It's the girl with the, like, stockings, and then she's back to back with her sex worker self.
And the girl is the girl that won't stop screaming in Jaws 2.
Oh, really? Yeah, good for her.
Everyone wants to die, but she doesn't die.
She's got the rage. Did I say range or rage?
She's got the rage, Carrie too.
A different movie. A different rape revenge movie where people, you know what? Carrie could have exploded a couple people. Well, maybe that's what we'll get with Mike Flanagan's version.
Flanagan's going to have her blow people up.
Yeah, could see it. Blowing people up is very popular these days.
It really is. Go see Until Dawn, everybody. Or watch Until Dawn when it's streaming.
We have a Patreon episode. We gently recommend it.
Yeah.
Okay. So Goldie is dead. Jeffrey has entered the club because he has been directed by a preacher. I think this is the preacher who was preaching in the bathroom when we first got introduced to Zorro.
Right. Mm-hmm.
This guy apparently just stands around and directs people and prophetizes, but okay. So Zorro has confronted Frankenhooker at this point. He does not recognize her.
Well, he recognizes her parts, hence the, where'd you get this arm? This is one of my bitch's arms. Who the fuck are you?
Yes, I do like how he basically manhandles her as if she is some kind of robot toaster or something, because he just shakes her and the head comes right off.
Well, to be fair, she does walk like a robot toaster would probably walk.
A little bit, yeah. So the neck is exposed, it's pulsing electrical sparks and so on, so Zorro is properly freaked out. Jeffrey is able to come in and fix it and escape with her, but Zorro follows them.
Yes, but I mean, that's the thing, like, there's like 5 minutes left of this movie by this point.
Oh yes, we're gonna rush right through this climax. So we get back to the garage lab and Jeffrey quickly does some neck repairs. Again, the suggestion that there's been a bit of a time lapse because she's got a whole bunch of like new bolts and different things in her neck to keep the head on. She looks quite a bit more properly Frankensteinian now.
Yes.
So he zaps her and this time she comes back as Elizabeth. So she's not Frankenhooker where she's, you want a date? You got any money? She's very much, why does it sound more and more just Italian? But it's regular Elizabeth. And this is where the film starts to get quite interesting because
yes,
she's excited to see him. It's like no time has passed for her. She doesn't know what's happened to her. And he has to explain, like, you didn't just go away. You died. And then she gets unhappy with the fact that she is not made up of her own body parts, but then she also kind of gets there. Like she gets used to it and is okay with it.
Yeah, no, it's great.
She says, I feel so strange, as if there were so many different women inside of me, which I think is a really interesting way to say it, right? Because in some ways, you could get pretty metaphysical with this, right? Like, it's Elizabeth inside a body constructed of multiple other women, but Elizabeth is actually suggesting, and the film would support this because that's why she's been able to speak in the voice or the slang of all of these sex workers, is that she is now like
an amalgamation of like even a personality of all these women.
Yeah, which I thought was a really interesting idea. And I do feel like it plays into where we get with her and Jeffrey at the end, which is one moment for now.
And I think even thematically, it's just like, okay, like, because in this movie, we are quite literally reducing women to body parts. But
yes,
but the body parts aren't like each one also is kind of
their own separate thing, and they all have value and worth, even though obviously we were cherry picking, the best of the body parts. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't have a fully formed idea about this, but bear with me as we move very quickly into the end.
Yeah.
Okay, so Zorro has followed them, and he just decapitates Jeffrey in one fell swoop. It's not like there's no talking, we don't announce ourselves. He basically just steps into frame and decapitates the quote-unquote protagonist of this film.
It is wild. And then, like, because Elizabeth is obviously shocked at this, and so to calm her down, he just brings out a bag of his crack rocks and says, here you go.
Yeah. It's almost like he sees the sex worker potential in her, like, oh, well, now I understand. I could, maybe do something with you. But yeah, I mean, the suggestion to me is that he essentially got all of these other sex workers hooked on crack, and then that's how he got them into sex work.
Oh yeah, and that's how he controlled them. Like that's and that's again part of that commentary from that news bulletin from Hooker from earlier.
Yeah, girls, the body's not over. So we don't get there because he has also called for his girls, and this has awoken the mass of estrogen-based blood serum sex workers who were inside the freezer. So this thing bursts open. You knew this was going to happen, right? Like the whole film, we've been anticipating this, and the question was, what is this going to look like? I thought it was going to be a big old blob of different body parts, and it kind of is. Like I said society earlier because one of these definitely looks like a butt that has a face.
Okay, well, and I have one that's like boobs with a mouth on it.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
You know, it could be a boob, it could be a butt. I don't know.
Be a boob butt.
But it's a bunch of different pieces that have melded together, and it's they're very gooey, they're very slick and shiny. Like this looks like what I want out of, well, this is 1990, but like a late 80s body horror film.
Yeah, and we should note that so it's not one large mass, it's like several different combinations of different parts, but it's practical effects, and it looks great.
And there is a true like vomit moment when one of these things with a mouth plants its lips on Zorro's lips.
It does indeed, yeah. So he's freaking out, and it's a bit of a good for her moment, right? Because it feels like revenge, but also like maybe some of these sex workers did have confused, maybe romantic feelings for him. But we essentially grab him and just drag him back into the freezer, and the lid closes. And that is the end of them and the end of him.
Yeah, it's like, I guess he's dead. Okay.
I guess so.
Like, I mean, I would have liked to have seen some aftermath of what they did to this body.
Yeah, because the estrogen juice is, I guess, gone because it fell over, right? Yes? I don't know. It's one of those things where I don't think too much about it because it's ultimately unimportant. We're just meant to understand that Zorro got his comeuppance. Yeah. It's solid. It's solid. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. Okay, so now the movie ends with Dr. Elizabeth Frankenhooker because she has put on all of Jeffrey's outfits and stethoscope and certain things, and she has reanimated him using his notes as well as living parts. They just happen to all come from a female body because, of course, that's what his serum used, and those are the parts that we had available.
And he is not particularly pleased with his new body.
No. So I wrote in my notes, oh, great, we've got some trans panic, because this is very clearly his head on top of a woman's body. She is fully nude. You know, from all accounts, it's actually exactly like what Jeffrey was looking at earlier when he was showing Elizabeth's head photographs, right?
Oh, yeah.
The proportions are quote unquote perfect for what he was looking for. But of course, it's not what he wanted. It's what he wanted to possess. So
I do love he's like, where's my Johnson? What are these boobs?
Yeah, it's like he doesn't even understand it. But one of the interesting things, so this is the follow-up to Elizabeth's sort of acceptance of her modified body. I think it's really interesting that she says that she loves him and that they're together again. So she is this Frankenstein creature composed of different body parts, like an amalgam of a bunch of different women. And she is now willing to accept her trans partner, who has the head of a man and the body of a woman. And it doesn't bother her because they're together. I found it so fascinating that she is so much more open-minded, and it's in part, I think, because she has the minds and the bodies of these sex workers from a variety of different women with different experiences who are open to sex and sexuality. And of course, Jeffrey is having a fucking meltdown like a classic man who is confronted with something that doesn't resonate with his lived male heterosexual existence.
Yeah, because when I got this reveal, I thought there were one of two ways that this could have gone. One is the way the film presents it. The other is that he like loves the body and he wants to oogle it. Like he wants to play with his boobs, you know?
I initially thought it was that, because this definitely feels like a bit of a comedic stinger. Like, haha, he kind of got what he asked for, but not in the way he thought. Like, it's an ironic comedy angle. And I think that's what the movie is going for. I don't read that he is actually interested in the body. I think he's more terrified. Like, to me, you can very easily read, oh, this is male emasculation.
Well, yeah. I mean, he like, one of the first questions is, where's my Johnson? So it's like, yeah, I mean, and granted, that would be a shocking thing to see. But still.
Yeah. I don't know. I truly was not expecting this movie to end with, like, I knew it was a Frankenstein story, so we were going to get explorations of different types of constructed bodies, but I didn't expect it to end with, like, I don't even know what to call this figure, because it's Jeffrey clearly would still identify as male, but he has now a female body.
So it's forced transition.
Yeah, but it's also one of those like, oh, now this man has to understand what it's like to live in a woman's body and all of the complications that comes with that and how ridiculous it is to be made to be perfect and so on. Like, I think that there's a multiplicity of readings. Like, one of them is inherently very, very bad. One of them is comedic. And then one is actually kind of progressive and really interesting.
I fully agree with you. But then, like, there's my issue with the film, though, is that, like, to me, the most interesting thing about this film is what potentially comes after this scene.
Oh, sure. Yeah, like the movie has no interest in exploring this, in part because I think it would cease to be funny. It would actually become like a challenging identity drama for Jeffrey, right?
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be if they had made it in 1991.
No, it would probably just continue to be an offensive thing. But
yeah.
But no, I mean, I sort of love that this movie ends. It was confronting because it made me think, okay, wow, you have to talk about this. And what do you think the sort of takeaway is? And I do think in 1990, the takeaway would have been very different than this conversation that we're having now, 35 years later.
Oh, for sure. And I want to bring in one quote that Henenlotter has about the film, too, because he mentions how, you know, a lot of times women will come up to him and like talk about how much they love Frankenhooker. And
well, yeah, because I remember when we were talking about him for Brain Damage, he was incredibly open and receptive to alternative queer readings of that film. So, like, I think he is a huge ally to women, gays, all the stuff.
I'm telling y'all, like, listen to one of his commentaries. He's a delight. But he says, a film has to be about something. In Frankenhooker, Jeffrey didn't just bring his girlfriend back to life. He wanted to fix her. She was heavy. He wanted to turn her into a centerfold. That's the fucked up aspect of that film, and that's why he must pay for his sin.
Oh my God, he gets it.
I've always been fond when women embrace Frankenhooker because they see past the TNA and realize that that son of a bitch tried to fix her.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that, you know. Again, I would have loved to have seen where the story goes from here, because I think the narrative avenues that are now open with this ending are so much more fascinating than the one that the film we have. But this isn't to say this film is bad. Again, I quite enjoyed this film. It just like the ending was made me just be like,
right?
What?
It teases you with the what could have been. Okay, so maybe to close this up, I debated whether or not to try to bring in some kind of game for this, but I think even when we covered Brain Damage, we talked about, okay, who could remake it? What would it look like? So, Trace, I'm going to put it to you. Would you want that sequel, or would you want a contemporary remake that actually addresses all of that stuff, maybe within the body of the film?
See, this is the issue. I think I would rather have a sequel because, and I'm going to bring up a movie that hasn't come out yet, but that you and I have both seen. Trying to remake one of these types of films in today's landscape, I just don't think it has the same kind of magic. And I'm talking about the Toxic Avenger remake, which I know you did like. I was firmly like meh on it because a lot of the exploitation-y charm and I would say audacity of that original film is lost in the remake. And so I don't see a version of this movie being remade that keeps that.
Okay, and you think a sequel has a better potential to continue that because at least it can draw from the original source?
Yeah, but you're also trying to, like, it has to exist in the same world. I mean, I guess it doesn't have to exist in the same world, but, like, it would be a continuation of this film, not a remake or reimagining or, like, let's put our own brand on Frankenhooker, unless, again, we get a female perspective on it.
I agree. I think what I would like to see, because this film is so indebted to female bodies, but also the transitioning, the compartmentalizing, the cutting up, and the monstrosity and that kind of stuff, I think I would really love to see like an Alice Mayo McKay take on this.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, I mean, I said a female approach, but like that includes trans women as well. So like,
obviously, yeah, because they're one and the same. But we're spelling it out, folks. But I think Alice's brand of DIY would make this really interesting. I'm not sure about the humor. The humor would be like an interesting piece, but I think the gender politics and like the kind of confronting nature, like I could see her getting the exploitation piece really nicely done.
Well, and yeah, I think there's a way to do offensive that's not just purely. There's a way to do offensive that's not just for the sake of being offensive, you know?
Sure. Yeah. It's the same as like, I set out to make a cult masterpiece. And it's like, yeah, we can all tell because you set out to make a cult film as opposed to it happening.
Yeah, exactly that. But I don't know. I mean, I would still love to see this story continue. I can't imagine a world in which that happens, of course. But
no. That's why we just get to brainstorm it. You know what? I just drilled something into like my number 22 of the brain, and we just had to think about it. That's all.
Yeah. But as it stands, I mean, I think this is a very fun film, and I get why it's a cult classic.
Oh, absolutely. Here's the funny thing, though. A lot of the time when we say something like, oh, it's a cult classic, or, ooh, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, like, I actually think this movie does have wide appeal. Like, there's a funny anecdote that Henenlotter's apparently conservative parents came to the premiere, and he was really worried that they were going to be offended, and then apparently they thought quite highly of it. They enjoyed it. But
I think that's where, again, the comedy comes into play. Like, the thing that makes this movie rated R is all the boobs. Like, there are so many boobs in this movie, but like, the violence isn't gory. It's they say fuck a couple times, but even the language isn't that bad.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, this seems like an easy watch. Like, if you were a teenager, like, this does not deserve an X rating.
But you're right. I mean, the ironic thing is that there were probably a ton of teenage boys who rented this because it's called Frankenhooker, and it's got a penthouse connection, and we're going to see a bunch of titties and tatas. Yeah. And they're secretly being fed a very progressive feminist message about this guy who gets what he deserves.
Yeah, but except the joke of the movie is, oh, he's got boobs and a vagina.
Sure, but I think you're still sneaking the message in underneath the boobs and the vagina joke.
No, you totally are. And again, it's all intentional on Henenlotter's part, which is why I think he says it's great when women embrace this because they do get it. Whereas I think the end of that sentence is, boys don't get it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I'm not going to say older male listeners, but, you know, if somebody had the opportunity to maybe check this out at a slightly impressionable age back in like maybe the mid 90s when you were a teenager, if you watch this, is that the takeaway? Did you understand what the film's messaging actually was? Or were you kind of like, she's hot, boobies. She electrocutes people, they go boom?
I mean, I don't think a lot of 13-year-old boys are thinking about the messaging of this exploitation film.
No, but I mean, I'd be curious to know if anybody sort of like, oh, wow, yeah, that movie slipped in the back door, kind of like,
yeah,
it got there in the end. I'm just making like anal jokes now, apparently. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to stop you and say
Please
that
do.
is Frankenhooker, everybody.
Yes, it is.
Some quick housekeeping before we announce what we're covering next week. If you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Blue Sky and Instagram at HorrorQueers. Shoot us an email at horrorqueers@gmail.com. Find us on Letterboxd to keep track of all the films we've covered. If you want to chat with other listeners, join our new HorrorQueers Discord. Link is in the show notes. If you have a moment, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you want even more content, please support the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/HorrorQueers. If you subscribe today, you will get 391 hours of Patreon content, including this month's new episodes on The Ugly Stepsister, Clown in a Cornfield, Until Dawn, Final Destination Bloodlines, and a brand new audio commentary on Another Simple Favor, as well as our brand new Patreon tier, The Requel, where we are doing episode-by-episode recaps of Season 2 of The Last of Us, and I believe, Joe, we finish this week.
We do indeed, yeah, this Friday. So if you've been waiting, now is the good time to hop in there because you will be able to access all 7 episodes. And congratulations, Trace, you have survived another month, so you get to change up the outro with our new Patreon schedule for next week's episode.
I sure do. But, Joe, what are we talking about next week?
Oh my God, we're kicking off Pride Month with not a good film for Pride Month. So, folks, we are going to revisit our rural horror theme, and we're going to check out possibly the biggest title of them all. It's a classic, maybe for all the wrong reasons. I haven't seen this movie in forever, so we'll find out. Trace, we're talking about Deliverance.
Yeah, I haven't seen this movie in a while either, so I'm curious to see how it holds up. I mean, it is considered an American classic, so
It is, and I feel like it just gets overshadowed by the one thing that everyone knows Deliverance for, but I'm hoping we're actually going to be able to have conversations about, like, homosocial relationships between men as they go camping.
I mean, that's the thing, is, like, when I first saw Deliverance, I just thought it was the male rape movie. So when that scene is just quote-unquote,
just a scene.
I was honestly a little taken aback because I was expecting it to be more exploitation-y, I guess, for lack of a better term. But it's not. It's just a survival film.
It is, indeed, yeah. So I'm curious to see how it holds up after all of these many years.
Yep. But until next week, we can cross out Frankenhooker.
Indeed. And we can cross out, oh, quiz, you got any money? You want a party? It's still sounding Italian. Anyway, yeah, cross us out.